Welcome to the Vibrant Living Network. Have you ever wondered what is possible beyond possible? What is the thing you've been wondering and inquiring about? Are you just feeling stuck and don't know why? Are you thinking or are you seeing? Seeing allows us to expand and have this other experience. We want to invite you for that wake-up call. We want to invite your spirit, your soul, so to be more alive, more connected. Glenn Brooks has been a life coach for over 33 years, author of Divorced to Patterns, Not Each Other, an explorer of what is possible. He has worked with people all around the world. Join us for a wake-up conversation, a dialogue with you, and our regular co-hosts, the money healer Stephanie J. Alvarez and Dr. Nicole Kane. We will have some of the most interesting contributors. We will be talking to some of the most interesting people and have some of the most resourceful teachers, wisdom-filled people from around the world join us. Share your voice, ask the questions, become free of the known into a new world of possibility. We are going to talk about all the things you wonder about: how to live, how to heal, how to connect, how to love, how to be seen. Your life is precious. Enjoy it.
Hello and welcome. I'm glad you're with us today. It's Glenn Brooks. And in a moment, I'm going to do a roll call. We got everybody coordinated here. This has been our series, Beyond the Formula. Beyond the Formula. So what is Beyond the Formula? There's many stories and many experiences I had. I thought about one I feel would illuminate this topic, because so much around us are formulas. You know, there's formulas from personal development. There's formulas for finances, and people sell us on formulas, right? But the formulas are often generic. So a while back, I heard about this guy. He had a stroke. He was a very rebellious person. He wouldn't cooperate with his occupational therapist, his physical therapist. He wouldn't do anything they wanted him to do at the hospital. He wouldn't do his physical therapy. So what was kind of interesting was one of the smarter people said, "Well, let's just kind of allow him to be for a few days, right?" So there's a lot of subtlety in life. That the power is that the subtlety, the non-doing sometimes produces the actions and a seeing that's very different. So with him, they gave him like this period of time, and he invited his friends to the hospital to play cards. And what was fascinating is one day he was playing cards 7 to 8 hours a day. He was playing cards all day long. And one day they stood at the window watching him play cards, the occupational therapist, the physical therapist, the social worker, the head cardiologist. And as they're watching him breathe and play cards, they realize he's doing all the movements by playing cards that they want to enforce on him in a way that would have created a formula and a system that got in his way. I got into coaching early on, and the model for coaching was that to really find out, in some sense, what resonates with someone. And I used to say to people, what's the song that you came to sing? Right? Because the model of coaching and a lot of the model of the world was very individualistic. About 8 years ago, that shifted for me. And I realized it's not just about the song you came to sing. What's the song that we came to sing together? It's a very different question. It opens up another level of connection. So in a world where everybody's singing about empowerment, it's different when you're in relational power. It's different when there's that relational dimension. Boy, I'm honored today. I just want to make sure everybody's here. So I want to say Greg Garcia. Greg, you there? I don't hear Greg's voice. Kimchi, do we have you? The roll call's not going that well. Kimchi, you there? Wow, that's amazing, Chris. Okay. Okay, then let's do this. We don't have Greg Kimchi. Things happen like beyond what we see. Let me just see something here. What I want to do today, we start in conjunction with Beyond the Formula, our bodies, the way we treat our bodies. We go to people, and they create systems or protocol. So the vibrant body is the body that you have that already knows how to move and heal. What's happened is you've taken on habits, right? And so the habits impact our movement and our brain. And when we're under habit, we don't see the miraculous connections. I had this guy. You guys are probably seeing. I had a couple I just met that came to see me. They read a book called 5.5%. 5.5%. And this, I didn't know, but this guy owned 100 restaurants in the Boston area. And I met them. They're an incredible couple. So what's kind of unusual about them as a couple was, the thing that last happened in his life, his wife had passed away. And he said to me that he never wanted to be in a position again where someone was that dependent on him, or he was that dependent on her, right? And he owned these 100 restaurants. And soon after him saying that, he developed pancreatic cancer. And in this process, this woman came to interview in a key position in his company when I met. And when she saw him, of course, she loved him immediately. And he decided not to hire her. He hired someone who turned out to be addicted to cocaine. So they came together. They actually got married. And it was the first time she was turned down. And it was the first time he was in a position like he had to be totally dependent. We're so paranoid about depending on each other. We use recovery language. We don't want to be codependent. And if you watch like animals like horses and anybody in the nature world, the conscious dependency is one of the most profound things we could offer each other. It actually opens up heart. It allows us to trust and drop in and sink in together. And yet, the language we have about relationships is some of those brutal disconnecting language. Now, what she did for him is she developed seaweed baths for him. Every day he came home. So seaweed pulls out toxins out of the body, and it allows us to also take a new energy. And she did this to him. And he realized during this process, he did get a surgery, but he fully recovered. When I was with him and we had like a 4-hour lunch, he was already back to bicycling, and he really told me it was like having this new life, and he had a new love like he never had. So the thing I want to share with you today about going around the formula, no matter what's been up to this point, this is a new opportunity. This is a new thing. And in terms of if you've been super independent and you haven't been willing to depend on anybody, consider your life where you actually could allow yourself to depend, and how that dependence could be the greatest gift you've ever had, because it allows your nervous system yourself to be in life in a different way. So with that, every day we got to trust people, from our food supply to things we purchase. I want to, Susie, the Food Decoder. I want to welcome you to the show, and I was going to ask Greg what his take on what a food decoder was. I think he's finishing working on someone right now. So let's go to food decoding. Welcome. What would you like to share with the audience in the world, on your world? What's happening in your world right now?
Right now, I am sitting in a room full of amethyst rocks. It is the most amazing experience. There's a little place in Vacaville, way out in the middle of nowhere, called the Rock Shop, and it's miles and miles of every kind of rock and stone and geode, and anything you'd ever want to see ever is in this particular warehouse. So I get the benefit of sitting on a wood bench with my audience as amethyst. So that's today.
It's beautiful.
I'm really excited.
It's beautiful.
Yes. And
it's really beautiful.
Totally. I wish you guys could see this. It's just really amazing. I did want to mention something. We talked about living water last week, and I wanted to add, we were talking about Himalayan sea salt added to your water.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to add a little blurb about that. Yes, sea salt, Himalayan sea salt, number one, because it hasn't been tainted by chemicals in the air and things, when they mine it from the Himalayan mountains, it's still pure, so we still have a good source of salt there. and that actually balances your blood sugar, balances your pH levels, helps with muscle, gets rid of muscle cramping, and it also releases a unique ionic energy when mixed in water. Now that's always a bonus, right? So there's also a little thing you can do in the morning. It's called a salt sole, S-O-L-E. And basically you get a glass container, you fill it a quarter of the way with the Himalayan sea salt, pour water over the rest of it. Make sure to get a plastic lid because you don't want metal leaching into your great water mixture. Shake it up, leave it overnight, and then in the morning when you wake up, you take a little teaspoon of that mixture and mix it into 3 ounces to 8 ounces of raw water, filtered water, and drink that in the morning, and that is supposed to balance you for the morning, your pH and all those things. And other than the fact that it gives you 84 trace minerals, which your body needs anyway. So that is your tip for the day. Sea salt is good in water.
You know what's interesting, Susie? We're going to have this guy on. There's a new book out on salt. So beyond the formula-wise, most people would say salt is bad for you in terms of blood pressure, and so what happens is within the formula, most people are consider salt a concern if they have high blood pressure, heart concerns. So what he gets into, the guy who wrote this book, and I'm telling you, I think it's called Salt Cures, and he has a pretty extensive background as being a cardiac. He's a biologist. He's some kind of researcher. So what he's distinguishing in the book is that iodized salt not only doesn't have the minerals, but because it's lacking the minerals, it's calc-refined sugar. And so he's talking about the salts around the world. Himalayan is one of them. There's another salt out of Hawaii. There's some salt out of Utah. That the mineral content changes everything and is actually medicinal to many of the things that they usually. So in some sense, a lot of what people do, it's a very formalistic thing. So it's interesting that the right water and the right salt is so medicinal. So yeah, I'm glad you're talking about this because, and these are very inexpensive things. Like I'm forgetting her name. We had this doctor on, and she was talking about baking soda being one of the most potent medicines you could take, and it's only a couple of dollars for a box. So I love these things that, like salt and water, are kind of wonderful doctors, and that you could use. I wish I was sitting in the Amethyst Rock Garden with you. Dang. So amethyst is considered a very it's considered a very medicinal. I don't have a write-up on it, but a lot of products they would include amethyst because it's supposed to. I believe it's supposed to be like a generator. It helps amplify, and so with healing bracelets and there's dip blankets, they use amethyst rock, so it would make sense to me. The hottest trend right now in the country is actually these places you go. I believe they're called salt baths, and you rent. I guess you basically sit in there's a lot of salt in the air, and it's very curative to things like asthma, breathing, respiratory conditions. So they're opening up salt rooms. In New York City, they have a salt sauna there, a black salt sauna. So I think that what we're missing as a culture, I think one of the key things is we're missing deep rest. And if we don't have deep rest, then what happens is it always strains our adrenals, and we become worn down. This is mostly what our culture is kind of a do-you culture. So I'm happy that you're sitting and taking in this wonderful period of rest. Rest is one of the most powerful doctors, that we have. And there was an investor that I met, and one of his big things about the people he met, that he was almost like a billionaire, this guy. And one of his big things about investment was the people that did well. He was in a lot of reverence for what he called the lazy mind. And what he meant was that people that could just see something at a level because they weren't racing, they weren't overdoing. I love that you're in the Amethyst Rock Garden, by the way. Makes sense.
Me too. I can't tell you. And amethyst is so great for peace and serenity. I mean, we're running around all the time. It's just so nice to relaxed. And, man, they talk to you, too. If you sit and listen, there'll always be a message for you from the rocks. And just this funny side story, because I'm a rock person, it's funny to me how rocks do not have arms, legs, money, anything, and somehow they travel all across the world and find you. Right? Funny.
Yes, I realized I didn't think about that this morning. That rocks could travel, but they don't have a credit card, they don't have money, and no legs.
No.
That's pretty significant.
Right? No legs.
Yeah.
Yes, and another kind of funny story, a little bit off the topic, but because I've been going to this particular rock shop for, 15 or 20 years, I asked for a particular rock that would deal with metabolism, and this nice man goes in the back of the, where the secret cool rocks are, and he comes out with this particular rock, and he said, "This has been back here for 20 years. We just found it, and we knew somebody was going to ask for it. It's got to be you, so this is your rock." And I'm like, oh, my gosh, really? 20 years it's been waiting for me to show up. That's amazing.
What is it, Susie? What's it called? What's the name of it?
It was called, I can't remember the name. It's the quantity of how you raise your metabolism. I'll think of it before the end of the show. But anyway, and then there's rock.
We're gonna take a brief pause. There's a Taoist teacher who travels the world teaching acupuncturists how to incorporate rocks as part of deep Asian treatment for healing. So we're actually inviting a lot of names. Jeffrey Ewan. We've only just begun. Stay with us for more Vibrant Living. I'm Glenn Brooks.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
In the wake of a disaster, what one thing can you send that will help people the most? A blanket, a tent, a sandbag, a doctor. Actually, if you send a monetary donation, you send all these things. Even a small donation can make a big impact and can quickly become exactly what people affected by disaster need most.
In the wake of a hurricane, your monetary donation can make a huge difference to those in need. To donate, visit supporthurricanerelief.org. That's supporthurricanerelief.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Only because we just had a lot of spots. Could you do them in like 10 minutes?
I think if you just...
You're listening to the Vibrant Living Network. I'm Glenn Brooks, along with the Food Decoder, Susie Marie, Stephanie Alvarez, checking to see if Kimchi Moyer is joining us from India. Kimchi is the Resopath. She works with people, and we're putting a conference together on this topic around is your body. Are you listening to your body? Are you doing things in your life that your body is? See, your body is always communicating, and when you do formula things to your body, a lot of times, even though the popular thing might be to drink whey, it might be to take these certain probiotics. But Kimchi does. She actually develops protocols that resonate with your body. the conference we're putting together on vibrancy and vibrant living and vibrant medicine is not just an aspect is going to be what resonates with you, but an aspect is how we come together and what allows us to be more alive together. We'll have vibrant movement. We'll have, we're going to talk about the vibrant brain. We're going to dive into this whole thing, what's happening with the brain, movement, and cognition. The way we think, the way we breathe. These are the things that isn't really, we don't get an education in, and yet it's the most profound things. Touching in our lives, physical touch, the ability to listen to someone, these are the most powerful things. And we're also going to have an opportunity there. We're going to have people there around book writing. There's a lot of times when you begin to write a book, you begin to examine your life differently. Of course, my specialty is actually couples, putting together a couples journal, because I feel like so much of what happens in the formula of personal development misses the relational connection. So this conference is coming up, and we're going to let you know. We're going to open up to speakers internationally. And what I want to do now, I do want to thank Regulat, of course. Regulators are one-of-a-kind elixir for wonderful health. It's made in Germany, comes in a dark glass, which saves the nutrients, and it's enzymes in it. It's more than just a probiotic. And it's one of the products that Kimchi has found for some people it makes a world of difference, not just at a probiotic level, but actually allows people to have deeper assimilation and discover another level of well-being. If you're interested in learning about Regulat, you can go to their website, which Stephanie knows because she thinks about Regulat actually every other hour you're thinking about it. What's the website?
Well, since I was just thinking about it, because it's that every other hour right now, it's regulat-usa.com, regulat-usa.com, and you can also find them on social media, Facebook. One thing I did want to say to Susie Marie, who was talking about the rocks being able to travel and, they don't have any arms or legs and they don't have to pay. I think it's funny because as humans, we too have that ability to be able to travel for free, not having to pay, as long as we're providing value, right?
Right.
So that's what I want to say.
And do you have the formula for that, Stephanie?
I actually do.
Okay. Tell us about it. And don't you have some new opportunity to talk about also?
Well, yes, yes, that I've been known as the money healer for a really long time, and sort of in the vein of going beyond the formula.
It's been 60
Glenn and
years.
I were having a conversation, and I just had not been feeling that name for a really long time. But, even when I started out, I would tell people I do money Reiki because it was a marketing term and people understood what that meant versus saying I do energy work, because then it was like, well, do you work for PG&E? Do you work for the, electric company? People didn't understand, but I started to say that because people knew what that term was. Like even Kaiser has started to accept Reiki for their insurance. And the more and more I thought about it, the more and more it just really did not feel right to me. It wasn't resonating with me. I knew that, and after talking with Glenn and a few other people, they said, what you do is so much more powerful than that. You're kind of watering down what you do. And I thought about that, and I'm like, you're right. And then also, what I do is so much more beyond just the money. Glenn talks a lot about being paid to travel, the man who gets paid to travel, right? And so there's all these different ways that you can have these amazing experiences that don't necessarily require money, and that's what I was alluding to when I said we also have the opportunity to travel and not having to pay for that, because somebody very well could pay us to travel. They could comp our room and pay for everything, because we would be providing them with value. There would be an exchange of energy. And then the word healer, for me, even though I'm in this community, I don't particularly like that label because I don't consider myself a healer. I'm just like a conduit. And what ended up happening is Glenn and I were having a conversation, and I was trying to think of, well, what is it? What am I? And I was looking at this article. He told me, well, go to this website, look at the different articles, and there was an article on rainmakers. And now this article was all about sales, and, you know, Rainmaker in the corporate world is the one who gets the accounts, and they make the big money and all of that. But I saw immediately the connection that I had with my Native American roots. When we talk about rainmaking, we do this exercise called pray rain, which basically we could actually feel the rain on our body. We could feel the mud in between our toes and the corn swaying at our shoulders, and we're already there. So we don't ever pray for anything, because when you pray for something, you're praying in the lack of that thing. So we are grateful, and we're already experiencing what it is that we're wanting. And I don't even like the word wanting, because, again, that's sort of lax. I'm trying to, and this is all beyond the formula stuff, right? Going beyond what everybody tells us is sort of that thing to do. This is the way you do it. This is how you experience it. Glenn and I have many conversations. He tells me about the non-doing, not to do so much, right? Because I'm a Capricorn, and I come from this background of being in corporate and also the spirituality, but we hustle, we go, we grind, we work. You know, there's like this hashtag that was going around for so long, Team No Sleep, right? And it was glorifying not having sleep. But what are the effects of that? And so for me, when we had this conversation, it hit me immediately. And also, Make It Rain, you know, in where I grew up in the hood, Make It Rain is about the money. But it's more than that, right? And so it just hit me so profoundly. And so from that moment forward, I started to redefine my brand. And today is the official day that I am announcing myself and coming out as the Rainmaker. And it's a different level of energy when I talk about it, when I feel it, because one of the things I know that I'm meant to do is to help people bring their dreams into reality. And so what you were talking about, Susie, there is absolutely a way to do that. There is absolutely a way to travel and to not actually have to have the money to do that. But my thing is that we are getting into this space. We are being in this space. I don't even want to say getting into it. We are just being that space. It's like you go from this space of having to think and really a lot of what Glenn would call thought viruses, right, or our belief systems that we have been ingrained, that we have basically, you know, when I think about beyond the formula, I'm thinking about all of these things that we have, that we've been given, that we've been told this is the way to do it. We've basically been force-fed these formulas all of our lives, and then that is what has created our environment around us. And then we have to basically realize that and start to step out, and it's uncomfortable. It can feel very painful to do that, because you are growing. I remember when I was growing up, I would have the worst growing pains in my thighs. It would hurt so bad. And as I've gone through this experience and shed some layers of my old belief systems, my old illusions, or what I would say in rainmaking, we wash them away, is that it's gotten me to this point where I can look, and now I can see, and I can see, you know, I work with dreamers. So with dreamers, we can see beyond what is to what can be. And when you go beyond the formula, that's what you can do. You can see beyond what is to what can be. So that's really what that means to me. And, you know, working with Glenn and having these conversations where we'll just talk for hours at a time, and really just stepping out of time and space and just being, that's where I am right now, and helping other people get into the energy of that. Just being, not, you know, non-doing. And I'm going through the medicine wheel right now, and in the direction we're at, it was about non-doing. And it's taken me years and years and years to get to this place. Even still, I have to release feelings of guilt for not working 24/7, for sleeping in, for, you know, taking a bath, and for just taking care of myself, you know, acknowledging that sometimes being in the unseen is really where you're stepping in and you're creating and you're being and you're allowing and you're flowing. So it's taken me a really long time to get to this place.
You inspired me to share something with me, Susie. So one of the biggest formulas we buy into is it starts off, the formulas become the invisible atmosphere around us. So the big formula that I bought into early on, and we all do, is this idea of do, be, have. We have to do something to have something to be something, right? The do, be, have formula. So when you flip that, it really becomes a being, and being and expressing and having. But it comes from this place. So when I was working on this project, and I met an amazing teacher very early on, and I could see in his world it was so different. Cause even when I would explain to people some of what he would talk about, people couldn't relate to it because it was, what happens, we have certain structures, like we revere in this culture linearness. We got to figure it out. We got to have all the evidence, and other people constantly remind us of that. As a matter of fact, people doing something more innovative, it's really hard because a lot of times it's not within the rules. So this idea of being. So I had this vision when I was probably 18. I wanted to step on the tennis court with the former number one tennis player in the world and play this match. And I wanted to explore movement and expression. And I felt like, wow. So what happens in life for a lot of people is they're so busy recovering from their jobs and what they think they have to do. Have to is another virus, right? The whole have to thing locks up your subconscious and your body. When we start to get into this awareness that we could choose things. So with the thing with Guillermo, I literally had this vision of seeing him, having this discussion with him. I didn't know when or where. Right? So sometimes we don't know how. We don't know how. A lot of times not knowing how stops us. But I had this vision. He was coming to New York to play an exhibition match. Arthur Ashe, one of the former number one players, was going to be there. And before you know it, I'm at a party by a pool, big press party for Vilas, and I'm talking to him. And I'm sharing this vision with him. Now, as this unfolds, I contact 20 retreat centers. They all say no. And I'm thinking this is the most valuable thing in my universe. But I left a message on the 21st call, and this tennis pro calls me back. Now, the next time I met this tennis pro, and I call myself a relational rainmaker. What I mean by that, it's really through relationships that a whole new world's open up. My sister in rainmaking is Stephanie here. So I got $20,000 just going there. And here's the thing that I find that's kind of interesting. I want to get your feedback. Sometimes when you explain to other people who purely have a linear model or a formula model, they don't hear you. And what they do is when they don't hear you, they don't usually say no. They may not say anything. So it's really significant. And this is why we put together the Vibrant Living Challenge. It's really significant that we speak to each other in a way and that we see each other beyond just the confinements of linear, because the confinement of how. And you see, that's why this other communication, it's verbal. The first time I got really turned on to this book, I read a book called The Language of the Heart. I read The Language of the Heart, and I realized through this book, through this brilliant book, why is it that couples might say they love each other, but they don't feel that in their system? He would hook them up to different devices. So in this work, you can call it relational rainmaking or the beyond the formula coaching. When I work with people, mostly what happens is they start to see another whole pathway, and that usually happens relationally. And how I got to the relational place, I had a series, I call it soul seeing. But I start to see things in a different way. So as an example, right now, if you've always hungered to not just host your own show, but to be an authentic thought leader or someone that really innovates, it's really good to run with other innovators and to have this unshakable team where we cover each other's back, and through that we change nervous systems and we begin to move and breathe differently. And that's, if you want to be part of that Vibrant Living Network, I'd love to hear from you. Also, by the way, if you want to get paid to go on vacation, if you want to be a vibrant travel journalist, I'm looking for 10 people. I'm not really looking. If it speaks to you, speak to me about being a vibrant traveler, because Susie brought it up really well. So how do you get paid? I'm going to tell you in a second how you get paid for something that you've never thought of getting paid before. I'm going to handle that one in a second. It happened in my life.
Glenn,
it changed my life.
Glenn, really quickly, I think it's important for me, when we talk about not looking, it would be open to receiving, right? Because I think it's really important that when we
yes.
we can give people these alternatives so that they can feel it, and then they know what we mean. So right now we're open to receiving. Yeah,
so if it moves you to want to be a travel journalist and you get paid, I want to give this story though, because this story is going to really, I think they're going to relate to it. It's a very simple story. You can call me at 413-345-3747. Susie sometimes dresses up as a raspberry. I said that this morning. I'll cover that as well. 413-345-3747. I guess that's how I feel about you, Susie. You're very creative. You're such a warm-hearted person. I always love speaking to you. So when I was about, you too, Stephanie, when I was about like 19, honest to God, I would spend all my money on books. So pretty much by the time I got finished buying my books, although I made friends with, really? Okay, I spent all my money on books. It was like, okay, what am I going to eat now? Because I've just spent the last $10. I need that book. So I told this woman, Joy Gross.
You guys spent your money on books. I spent my money on rocks. You guys spent your money on books. So there you
Seriously? Go. I'm so funny. I thought you said pot. I was thinking about this kind of public declaration there. Rocks. Well, okay, so what happens is one day, see what happens, we live within a formula, and we don't even see us on the So my formula was, for a while I worked these temporary jobs. What was kind of cool about the temporary jobs was the woman that was giving me the jobs, she was doing some really unusual work in her own life. And she would say, Glenn, I'm sending you today to put styrofoam squares in cinder blocks. She goes, be there at 9. She goes, also, Glenn, she goes, your work could touch and change people's lives for the better. She goes, when you come back, let's talk about that. And she'd come to my house and pick me up. And she would take me on drives. And she kind of cared. So I called her one day, and I said, I don't want to ever do this again. I don't want to go to this factory and do this. I really actually want to teach people, and I want to help people with their breath. I want to help them see new things. And it was really because of Anne Green. I haven't talked to Anne in many, many years. But I'm going to tell you the story when I come back that I went from paying for books to getting paid to read, and now paid for travel. So if you like to get paid and have a different viewpoint, a different seeing, stay with us on Vibrant Living. If you want to ask Susie how many rocks she has in her house, you could do that as well. Stay with us. If you like to enjoy it.
Feed your soul with Waves of Consciousness on OMTimes Radio.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
More than 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder, and that number continues to grow. I'm Sharon Saylor, and I'm one of those 24 million. To put that number in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. That's why I've brought together top experts and those thriving regardless of their diagnosis to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information. Join me, Sharon Saylor, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio to find out how to live your life uninterrupted.
Hey, Dr. Phil here. You know, I help people solve difficult problems every day, but one problem has me stumped: childhood hunger. Nearly 16 million children in America struggle with it. Luckily, the Feeding America network of local food banks collects surplus food, giving hope to hungry children and their families. But they need your help. Join me in supporting Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
You're listening to the Vibrant Living Network. The Vibrant Living Network. I'm Glenn Brooks, along with Stephanie Alvarez, the Rainmaker, Susie Marie, who writes incredibly unusual checks on magical paper. She's also the Food Decoder. So we went to the pause, the break. What changed my life? Well, one thing is, very simply put, I could tell you that when I always kind of felt that I didn't belong here. I always felt like a lot of things people did I didn't really enjoy. I didn't enjoy sports. So I always had a sense there was another path. I just didn't know what it was. But I could recall this from the earliest moments. I always just had the sense that I was a stranger in a strange land. And that's kind of what led me to books. From books, I went to nature. I also knew when I moved differently, my life would change. So I was also really, so I got curious because conventionally, I couldn't stand Jim. You know, I didn't want to pull down my jockstrap to show Mr. Bukowski I had my jockstrap on. That seemed humiliating and idiotic to me. But I realized I did enjoy running down a trail, and I did enjoy actually sending a beam of energy back and forth. I called Joy Gross up. Joy ran a natural health center up in New York, and I spoke to her. And no one ever said to me ever, Glenn, be this beam, be this inquirer, and you can make as much money as you want. You can actually not just survive and have to work these horrible temporary jobs, which they were for me, you know. And I surrendered at a certain point. And I actually, the value that I got working these temporary jobs is actually I met some amazing people. So I kind of had to get out of the way to receive the value. I did receive the value. I called Joy Gross up, and I told her exactly what I wanted. It was going to be like $79.18 and then shipping, which at that time was going to be some of the last money I had in my pocket. But I was so hungry, and I was so happy to be talking to her because people were coming around the country to her retreat. And this is probably 2 years before I became one of America's first coaches. And so I called her up, and I told her about what I was really interested in. You know, she said something to me, and this is what I call golden feedback. She said, Glenn, she goes, I would like to not just send you these books on my tape album. She goes, I want to get your feedback. And I was like, okay. And she goes, Glenn, I'm going to send these to you at no charge. And I was like, could you repeat that? She says, yeah, I'm not going to charge you. Now, I went from getting all my books for free to then people would say to me, this one guy talked to me one day, and this is how it works. He says, Glenn, would you come here and we speak? And I said, yeah, and all of a sudden it occurred to me, hey, I now charge $300 to hear people speak because I could alter the quality of their talk, and I could give them feedback how they move. So $300 later, I go to some kind of business meeting, and he's speaking. And in the parking lot, I'm telling him what I noticed, and he's taking notes. And I'm thinking, no one's ever taught me anything like this ever. In the formula, you gotta fill out applications, you gotta do all these things, and that wasn't my style. That wasn't what resonated. So then what happened was I get into radio. My first show 31 years ago was called Real Health. And I have people on, and one of the things they say to me, these are people in big publishers, they say, Glenn, the book isn't going anywhere. And I said, why do you think that is? And they said, well, my publicist doesn't have a clue about the book. They make all these mechanical phone calls and send letters. There wasn't emails back then, really. But I would listen to people in a way where I could see another angle on their message. So all of a sudden, I'm kind of in this other world, and I don't know who's in that world other than people telling me, you got to rely on this formula. You got to rely on this formula. At the time, I had really bad sinus headaches. I was taking medication. I think part of the book thing was the medication gave me insomnia, and I would stay up all night and read because I had insomnia. I'd go to school, and I would sleep. And I also was put to sleep anyway by school. I'm sitting with the superintendent of schools of Vermont. She had a camp called Heart Bend. And she says to me something no one had ever said to me before, which was, she says, Glenn, she goes, you're brilliant. She goes, your learning system it's encompassing a whole bunch of things, and you'll be able to reach people, some kind of counselor. And it was like no one had ever said to me anything that I'm a problem in school, that, and the whole process for me was torturous sitting under fluorescent lights. When I came to New England, I meet Dr. Wayne London. He's studying incomplete spectrum lights, like people sit on at work. Well, a lot of what ADD is and all this other stuff, the brain needs sunlight. It obviously needs vitamin D. I did a 1.5-year series. I was paid $50,000 to do a series that I wish I learned when I was a kid, because my whole life was different when the springtime began. My acne went away, and I felt better. I had no idea why. No one ever said it to me. I went to the dermatologist, and he said, well, rub this stuff on your face. And I was thinking, why did I rub some questionable stuff on my face? No one could speak to me, except every so often I would meet a wisdom person, and I would see life differently. And that's how I really became a coach. I didn't get certified by doing some cookie-cutter system. I pioneered something because life kept reflecting back things to me where I could see in a different way. When I wrote Unscripted Power, which I did in Seattle, my agent came on the show with me. If you want to get a copy of Unscripted Power, call me, because I'm going to print this book. And this book is kind of how I even came into this thing. If you want to be an Unscripted Power speaker, or what I call a vibrant speaker, If I'm speaking to you now, if something lights up in you and it makes sense, when we have a different conversation, we can take a different path of action. Otherwise, it's kind of like, the conversation is so focused on what's, as Stephanie said, it's so focused on this horizontal universe. When you come into the vertical, you start to realize, oh my God, it's vertical, and I can see differently. But a whole bunch of people grab your hand and say, it's horizontal, it's horizontal. You got to get a job. You got to do it this way. The invisible world is so powerful. It's powerful when you can particularly have that conversation. A Vibrant Living Conference, a Vibrant Medicine Conference, you're going to come together with people in the world that move differently, that breathe differently, and then, in fact, give you a different medicine, a medicine that your body would desire if you could actually listen to it. I want to thank Kimchi Moyer for being with us. We're helping write Kimchi a book. She'll be one of our main speakers at the event. She's in India right now because I asked her to come in. I guess she had some technical difficulties. I believe India is either 10.5 hours ahead of us or behind us. I could flip a coin. I'm not sure it's one way or the other. To reach me directly about being part of our international speakers and to getting a different education. You know, you could have an outside talk. This is a talk that moves you deeply where you can move others. If you're a couple, I love you guys. I love working with couples. I feel there's something significant when a couple comes together and shares a message together. I'll give you my number. Then we're going to throw a rock back to Susie and let her share. 413. We won't hit you with the rock. It's just throwing the rock so you could grab it in the amethyst rock garden you're in. 413-345-3747. 413-345-3747. Susie woke up one day, and I spoke to Susie about being the food decoder. And a food decoder, in my mind, my definition, is someone who actually decodes. And what I mean by that, so all the labels and mislabels and misinformation and all the stuff we don't know about, because if you know about it a lot of times, you may not eat it, or there might be something that's better suited if you understood what was there. So Susie has taken on this new identity. She wants to make over $600,000 this year and get a house in Marin, and that's why I'm here for you right now, Susie.
Well, I need to say this. First of all, I am in the right place. So I want to thank you, Glenn, and Stephanie, because Stephanie brought me to you. And I'm thoroughly grateful because every time I'm on this show, I have so much fun. It makes me so happy to do it. So whoever's out there who's thinking about joining us, don't be afraid. Come on in. The water's great. It's just the most fun thing ever. So anyway, that's all I have to say.
Water is great. One thing I wanted to say too, Glenn, is that in working with you, it was funny because before I used to compare myself a lot to other people. And I used to look at their videos or their copy or their websites or their language, and I would think like, oh, okay, so I could just kind of take this, tweak some things, and make it my own. But I wasn't really just comfortable with being who I was. And it was really eye-opening when you have this thing like, I don't want to be like anybody else. I don't want to, talk like anybody else, the language that they use, the strategies that they use, the formulas that they have, and then I just started to get like that too, and I'm at such a place now where I can't even follow some of the people I used to follow because I'm like, oh, you're so inauthentic. Like, you sound like everybody else. And I just feel like, now I have this really distinct message. For me, it feels that way. And for other people, and the energy has completely shifted when I talk about what it is that I do. And all of these opportunities and possibilities have opened up for me. But the beauty of that is that not only has it opened up for me, but it's also opened up for everybody else that I come into contact with, that I work with, because now I can talk to them about going through that, because there's so many people right now that are comparing themselves. They're looking at all the formulas. They're looking at all the strategies, and it's everybody's doing the same thing. Nobody's really just sort of being who they are and setting things up on their own terms. And you have all of these coaches that are telling you, do it this way, and I know who has worked with what coach based on the things that they're saying and the way that they're doing it. I'm like, oh, you worked with that person. Oh, you worked with that person. Because you all do it the exact same way. So I definitely appreciate that, because it's just gotten, like I said, it's gotten me to this point where I don't even want to look at other people's stuff. I don't want to see what anybody else is doing. I just want to do it the way I want to do it.
That's right. Yeah. It reminds me of a Star Trek adventure. Everybody goes dressed as Spock or Kirk, and it's kind of like, I don't know what the heck it is. It's very early on, I met Tony Robbins, and we spoke at the same event in Boston. And I had no interest in Tony's work at all. As a matter of fact, I thought it was hazardous at the time. And then I would meet people who, honest to God, they would pretty much, their website looked like a mini Tony Robbins website. And I thought, wow, this is kind of running the industry. People, there's the main Big Mac, and there's other imitation Big Macs. And the Big Mac is saying, if you come around me and hang out at McDonald's, you'll become a mini McDonald's. And so it was really confusing because, well, first of all, people lost a lot of money. Because in the old days, they'd hype up, and I'd say the old days are here. People, they hype this a lot, so you'll buy in. Like, do this or do that, but there's no real meaning, or like, how do you distinguish? I also play with something. I want to give you a little exercise. I do this. So there's some days, because I'm always playing with the idea of not competing, going beyond competing. I'm a big-time conformer, but competing is a whole different world. But I allow myself, if I feel the feelings of like, because, I have the conditioning as well. But if I feel like I want to compete, I basically play this thing where I say I allow myself to compete as much as is here right now. Like, allow it. Like, don't suppress yourself. And that's what I love about Reset, Stephanie. It's kind of like, I love how you talked about the transition and the recognition. It's such a beautiful thing. Like, you're doing something, and all of a sudden you step back and realize, oh, it's doing me, and I want to step in a different direction. Right? You're on a new road, and this is how I see couples and kind of working with people. It's like they begin a new way, and they report back because now they could see it. It's not just me telling them.
Yes, exactly. You start to embody it.
It's an inside out. Yeah.
Yes. You start to breathe.
You helped me the other day because I did. You helped me. You helped me the other day because I did a little session. I did a little session with you, and I realized, like, oh yeah, when I'm in the circle with someone and I'm really tuning in, it's very different. That I'm feeling kind of this edge about it. So I step away from the edge and I get on the inside. Then I become a conductor and I'm in rhythm with someone, and it's a different way to live. And that's one of my biggest lessons of my marriage. And it's funny. It's funny. People have so many things they do around their marriages. But one of my biggest lessons was, first of all, what's interesting, our fathers both left within the first year. So obviously that was a big imprinting to both of us. The thing that I've discovered now is that's a great blessing. So if you understand that the poison's the medicine, it changes your life. But one of the big blessings of my relationship with Donna was, and still is, that I could see I was always looking out. I was always kind of looking out for things because I knew no one was around me to kind of teach me a different way. And then at a certain point I started to realize, oh, by the way I'm in relation to people, I can actually experience and go in this different way. And a lot of times I guess I got more secure about other people not knowing. So kind of like being in this, I guess you're stabilized, but you're in the world of unknowing. So you're unknowing, but you're stabilized. And you kind of go through this breath transition, this breathing transition, where it's like you can move in a different direction and attract people because, in a sense, they're looking for that energy. And then you're not wearing yourself down, by trying to get other formulas and stuffing it in your bag. Kind of like Susie, what you were saying about the food fancy show on the last day, like the vultures that come around to steal the food. And I'm just thinking it's kind of like that with the whole developing awareness. It's kind of like when you go to a show, it's like, are you there to steal food or are you there to share a message? Right? It's kind of like two different worlds, but it's a different thing when you feel yourself as a generator, or you're there to kind of like, oh my God, I got to grab that last thing, because that you lose your breath that way.
Well, and it's funny, just to add something, another friend and I this morning were talking about survival and purpose. So a lot of us, of course, are running on the fact that you have to pay the bills and you have to make money and all that, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that's your purpose. And when things are not going right and falling apart, guess what? That's not the right way. Then your purpose is, when the opportunities just come out of nowhere and everything starts to fall in line, that is when you know you're going the right way. Maybe it seems slow. Maybe you still say, I need, my $1 billion to go buy my house in Marin. But guess what? It's all going to come. You just have to keep going. And yeah, I want to travel and write and whatever it was you were saying, Glenn. Anyway, go ahead.
Yes. Absolutely. Well, there's a woman who came to see me from her. Her name is Catherine Furman. So Catherine, I'm going to say publicly, Catherine saw a picture of me and basically said she was meditating for 25 years to meet me. Imagine meeting someone like that. A beautiful way to meet someone, by the way. So pretty much what it was really unique with Catherine, I probably should get her on sometime to talk about this, but we began to speak to each other from a very different place. Is that the last break of the show, or is this the second or third break? I don't even know, Stephanie. We're leaving?
Join us.
What's that?
Yep.
Join us next week.
Go ahead and what? Oh, shucks. Thank you, Stephanie. Hey, next week. Much love to everybody. You're listening to the Vibrant Living Network. Vibrant Living Network. I want to thank Chris and all my friends at OMTimes Radio. We have the only network on OMTimes Radio, the Vibrant Living Network. If it moves you, call us. Your life precious and joy. Susie, always a deep pleasure. And appreciate you guys deeply. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Stephanie.